Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
It's Friday night. Welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate all of you tuning us on in. We're getting into aliens. We're getting into remote viewing. Dr. Angela T. Smith is here. And we're going to enjoy the hell out of this one. I can already tell you. It's guaranteed to be some seriously good stuff tonight. All right, hello to everyone in our chat rooms. Race fan in the gold medal position. And B taking home the silver with Tim Mothman and his goatee taking home the bronze medal tonight. JSCO, how are you? Our resident attorney, Michael Morris, Brown Dwarf, Forrest Louie, Stephanie Kenny Blankenship. Hello to all of you. Deer Slayer, Sabrina, Kevin, Eternity Eternal, and Superknower. Thank you for coming on in. Monica, a great veteran, Human Carl. Not to be misconstrued with Alien Carl. Thank you for your service in the United States Air Force, Carl. We love you, my friend. Thank you for everything you did. Penny Van, how are you? Good to see you. And there is our good friend, Desert Rat. Here we go. Continuing on. Susie B is here. Thank you for coming in, Susie B. All the way from Stockholm, Sweden. Starting in goal tonight, number 36, Lars Janssen. Karen and the Woo Trainer here. Karen will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind. To the left of the studio. Kurt M., Laura Lobbs, nice to see you both. And W. David Page, Road Flare, Jenny White Bear, we love you. Thank you for coming on in. Millennium, my man. The Debster. How you both doing? Jessica S. Just another guy named Harry. And the Great Marine, Black Dragon, thank you for your service, my friend. We appreciate your love and all your dedication. Lisa C., nice to see you. And there's Vin Man. Vin Man will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio, if you don't mind. To the right of the studio. Vin Man doesn't make eye contact. So if you make eye contact, he ain't signing for you. He just refuses. Nick Adkins, Android Paranormal. Good to see you. Mark Sanchez, Bombshell Bomber, Lee the Bee. Thanks for coming on in. Forrest Louie, thank you for kicking off the Super Chat tonight. The Super Chat is a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis, so thank you so much. Jay Don, how you doing? Susan Alloway, a great veteran of the United States Navy. Much love to you and the service that you provided. Vash the Impaler, Richard Elmore, Xochitl Baez Richards, how you doing? Scott Rosen, thank you for coming on in. The lovely Pixie Lara, how you doing? Doug Shelby is here. The Doug Shelby has arrived, which means we can officially start this show. Little Cam 51 over on Twitch, nice to see you. And hi, Sandra. Hi, Sandra. Hi, Sandra. Always a mouthful. The Debster, thank you for that wonderful super chat and always supporting us nightly. Thank you, Deb. We love you. And sweet Donna Spencer, how are you? Roger Murray, how you doing, buddy? Connie Willis passed away? Are you serious? I was just talking to her like 2 weeks ago. Really? This is sad. If I gotta find out about that. She wanted to come on the show. Weird. President Zaddy, you Zaddy. Shadow Time writer Kathy Evans, and who else? Dogface Simon, thanks for joining us. Noble Patrick, how you doing, buddy? All right, let's get over here, start the radio side so we can let Bill WD40 into the chat room. And Rayfin, good to see you. Javier and Ann Palmer, nice to have you back. And let's see here. Ozzy Ange, good to see you. Nina Williams, thanks for coming on in. Simon, thank you for that awesome super chat, man. Very much appreciate the love from Australia. And who else we got? Big J, how you doing, buddy? And let's see, Kevin, Shadow Time right here. We're caught up. We're caught up. Super chat is open. Don't forget to join the Space Travelers Club on Patreon. And here we go, everybody. Horns up. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon at Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find us on our website. All right, we're going to have a great night tonight. We're getting into aliens and remote viewing. Dr. Angela T. Smith will be here momentarily. Then in hour number 3, we are going to go to Terry Hall. Yes, Terrence Hall for the UFO report all night long. All right, let us hammer time into this one. Dr. Angela Thompson Smith was trained in controlled remote viewing in the mid-1990s by 2 ex-Stargate instructors, Dr. Paul H. Smith, who will be a guest here next week, and Lynn Buchanan, who you've heard on this show before. Since then, she has participated in many successful remote viewing application projects. Dr. Smith is also the director of the Nevada Remote Viewing Group that has included remote viewers from around the world. Angela was a founding member and director of the International Remote Viewing Association. She is a published author with books on Amazon, including Voices from the Cosmos. And guess what, people? Even more special about Dr. Smith, she likes the aliens. She's one of us. Let's bring her in. Dr. Angela Smith, thank you so much for coming on Spaced Out Radio tonight. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me on the show, Dave.
Oh, we very much appreciate you taking the time from definitely a home away from home in southern Nevada. So I appreciate you coming on in and sharing your time with us. Have you always been into remote viewing and aliens, or was this something you kind of professionally fell into?
My family always had an interest, and my parents had seen weird stuff in the skies. I grew up in Bristol, England, and on the outskirts of the city. So it was a fair bit of countryside around. And so my parents had, when they were younger and when we were younger, often said, "Oh, I just saw something in the sky. It looked like a light bulb upside down, glowing, going through the sky." And it was just taken for granted, that there was stuff out there. I can't say as a child that I ever saw anything, but what I did was I had out-of-body experiences since I was a young child and thought that everybody did it. until I was in my late 20s, 30s, and then went to some evening classes and learned that this was something that not everybody did. As a matter of fact, go off joyriding before they went to sleep. But and then there's a whole follow up from that. I went and did some research and followed up on finding out who else had this. A lot of famous people have had out of body experiences. I was very fortunate that I had many of them, and I was able to bring them under some control. And it wasn't till my 20s that I began having some experiences that are really classified now as abduction type experiences. And I had no category to put them into. So I didn't know. I just shoved them back into my mind and said, that was weird. And wasn't until about 2000 that I really began seriously researching.
How did you learn about these subjects? Was it something that as you grew professionally, the people you were associated with had keen interest in this, or was it something that just you had heard of and thought, hey, maybe my own curiosity needs to find out about this?
Bit of both. As I said, my parents were always into the UFO stuff. Um,
Yes.
yeah, and then I was doing the OBE stuff. But in England, it's a lot more open to these topics, and everyday folk are okay to talk about it. Here in the States, if you talk about any of these topics to regular folk, they look at you a little bit strange. But when I was growing up, it was okay to talk about, intuition, except when I told my mother some of the experiences I had, she'd say, "Oh, you have a good imagination. You're a great reader. You read a lot." So it was sort of swept away a little bit because I don't think my mother wanted to have a strange child.
No, no, neither did my mother, and I was that kid. I was that kid.
Yeah.
What did you how if you hadn't learned this, how would your life have gone? Would you just be a doctor in some career, maybe, just practicing what you practice because that's the way you were supposed to do it, or would you be feeling like you're missing something?
Well, I think the way I started off, I would probably have ended up in a dead end job, and then just getting married, having children, living next door to my mother, because I left school at 16, which was the school leaving age in England at the time, and went into an office as an office junior. And it wasn't until I was 18 that I decided I wanted to go into nursing because I had an aunt that was in the nursing profession. And so from there, I think I always wanted to go the next step. So I went from nursing to social work to working in medical research with moms and babies to parapsychology. So it was a big leap from the academic world to the parapsychology world. And I went down to work at first of all to volunteer and then work at the Princeton Engineering Anomalies Research Lab at Princeton University. So started off my life pretty mundane. Working class family, was expected to leave school, go and work. College was out of the question at that time. It wasn't until I was older when I made my own decisions that I decided to go to college, get educated.
Wonderful. And what have you learned about yourself going through this process?
That I can be exceedingly stubborn. And when I choose to do something, I usually plow my way through it and get through to the end. It's despite other people's skepticism. For example, when I was working in medical research with the moms and babies, then I had the opportunity to go down and work at the PAIR lab at Princeton, the parapsychology lab. And I told the professor my plans. And he went ballistic. And he said, that parapsychology group, you're never going to work in academia again, even though I was going to work at Princeton University. You know, you've just ruined your career. You're not going to be able to do anything in the regular academic world again. But it was a bit of a jolt, but I said, no, I'm going to go do this. So that was an example, you know, despite other people's skepticism, I just go ahead and do what I planned.
When did the ETs start coming?
I think this started pretty early on in my life because when I was at Princeton, I started wondering about these experiences because I met up with people who had similar experiences, and I decided to go and I chose a therapist myself rather than somebody being chosen for me because I didn't want to be influenced unduly, and then started writing up some of my memories. And I think from really very, very early on, maybe even, you know, just starting to walk and talk, that there might have been some interaction.
Hmm. Did you ever consider yourself a contactee or an abductee?
I don't like those titles, and I don't know what else to put in their place because I don't think of myself as a victim, as being taken. I have always had the feeling that somewhere down the line I might have given permission, but I don't know. Contactee is also there's all labels to label experiences. Um, so I like to think of myself as an interactor mostly, um, because I remember as one of the experiences that I had some hypnosis with the therapist and found myself with my parents on top of a hill in this remembered experience. And I couldn't have been very old because I was being held. And I kept saying to my parents, put me down, put me down. I want to go play with the little people. And I think I was even that very young age. My parents were sort of switched off, but they were still hanging on to me. So that was one of the very earliest experiences remembered through hypnosis.
Oh, wow. Wow. Now, the remote viewing aspect of everything, did you believe in remote viewing before you started taking the courses? Did you know what it was?
I didn't know what it was. I'd heard about intuition, telepathy, and clairvoyance. You know, all the labels again. I'm into labels lately. It's all labels for experiences. And I didn't even know that what I did as a child and young woman was called out of body experiences until I started to read about it, and understood what it was that I was doing. So remote viewing, when I went to PAIR, they were studying a protocol called precognitive remote perception, which was there were two people, sometimes a group. One person would go out at a certain date and time to a location, and then the other person would try and remote view, remote perceive where they were, what they were doing, etc., in a very strict type protocol, scientific protocol. The fact, though, it's called precognitive was even before the outbounder, the person going out to a location, knew where they were going, the percipient or the remote viewer, remote perceiver, did their session even before, like it could be a week before, a month before, they actually went to a location, the outbounder to a location. So time and space, the PAIR lab people found that time and space had no effect. It didn't matter when the viewing was done or when the other person went to the location. There was still data found. They still got data.
Wow.
So
When
I
you
knew
s-
about, yeah,
when
sorry.
you say data, what kind of data were you looking for?
What the lab was looking for was they had a sheet, a questionnaire, and the person who went out, the outbounder who went out to a location, had to say, were there people there? Were there dogs there? Was the traffic there? And then after going through all of these, what they called descriptors, they would then write a short piece about where they were, do some sketches, and even take some pictures. And then when the person who was doing the perceiving also filled in the same sheet, and they were sent to a third party who compared them by computer to see what matches there were. So they were looking for matches to see how well the remote perceiver picked up the outbound information.
Hmm. What's the difference, in your opinion, then, between remote viewing and astral travel?
That's what I gave my talk on at the last IRVA conference. So it's a continuum. In the very first part of the continuum, you have what's called astral travel or out of body experience, where in the very simple form, the person just drifts up out of their body and can see themselves down below. And they go, wow, this is the ceiling. Along a continuum where they're able to travel from that location and go visit other locations, all the way to the very, very formal remote viewing, which was coined around the early 70s, where they would be able to go to a location and in a very tight written protocol describe where the outbounder was, where the event had taken place, or the person was, or the murder had taken place. It's got so many applications. So that's at the far end of the continuum, because I don't think it's an either or thing.
Hmm. See, I know I've astral traveled before,
Okay.
and for me, it's an experience that I don't know how to do it. I just know I can.
Yeah.
And to me, it's all about concentration and kind of relaxing my consciousness and just letting things happen. And I don't know how I could do it. I just, like I said, it just happens. It doesn't happen like I'm
Mhm.
out of control of it, but if I were to concentrate on it, I can make it happen. I mean, how do some people out there know how to do it and have no explanation why or how?
Um, I think it has to do with context, because if you're just going and flying around and with no directions, nobody's saying to you, oh, somebody got murdered at this particular location. We need to find out who the murderer is. Not all remote viewing is done as open as that, but that is a possibility. Then you would use the OBE to go to that location and try and find information about the murderer or the murder scene. We did that with the Denver DJ murder case that I worked on. Um, but so it's a matter of degree. And people who have some ability. You don't have to be a super psychic to do remote viewing. There are protocols, there are trainings to show you how to do it. Take it step by step, and look for this information, then look for this type of information until you get the whole picture.
Right. Right. I want to focus on aliens here for a little bit because you've written recently about aliens and the different species that are out there. And we have a good guest on here, uh, R. Keith Andrews, who has written an alien species book as well, and Craig
Good.
Campobasso has as well, another good friend of this show. And do you believe that all of these different species are visiting Earth?
No, no, not all of them. Um, there are a good proportion of them. There are even some that are here resident. and I'll maybe talk a little bit about that later. It was 2014 or 2013 when we actually started doing this project. I had a business client and doing remote viewing for him. And he called me up one day and said, "Can you talk to the aliens?" And I said, "Well, maybe." So we put together a protocol, which was a very simple protocol. It involved some questions, the kind of questions you'd ask if you went out into the Amazon and found some people that knew about us but didn't really know too much about us. And we could ask them questions about their life. So these were in my computer, and the client decided, because this isn't something I do every day, this was fairly new to me. So he said, "Okay, let's go and look at the tall gray first." So sat at my computer with the questions that the client and I had come up with, and felt very foolish sitting there going, "What am I doing? This is very strange." Even despite all the experiences I'd had, it still felt odd. But as soon as I started asking the questions, and I am not a channeler or a medium, I'm just a bit like you, I'm a reporter. I'm a scientific reporter. And as the information was coming in, I was typing it into the computer, asking clarifying questions, etc., and just marveling at what was coming in. Got pages and pages of this stuff, typed it up for the client. He said, "Great, do the next one." And now, we've looked at the tall gray, let's look at the little grays, let's look at the reptilians, let's look at the what they called the whites, or let's call it the Nordics. And what convinced me that, we did about 20 of these over the year, what convinced me that they were not just me making them up, because I tried to stay very objective and non-judgmental, was that each of these species had a different personality, different way of handling the questions, different approaches, different ideologies. And it was just amazing to me. So, as I say, we did this for a year until the client came over under some surveillance and got spooked. And he said, "Let's get back to business remote viewing." But that from those interviews then, because we'd always planned to do something with the information, eventually I had a colleague who also had some information that he wanted to put into a book. He said, "Well, let's write up the book, put the ET interviews in the middle of the book, and then let's get it published." So this was in 2014. It took us 10 months to put this together. And it was C.B. Scott Jones and I, 2 PhDs, writing a book about aliens. And it was very popular. It's still selling.
That doesn't surprise me. I
Yeah,
mean, I know that, there's a lot of people who are seeing a lot of different things out there right now. And they're seeing beings that have never been seen before or
yeah.
reported before. And at sometimes I wonder, is it imagination, or is it something completely different that they actually are seeing some sort of different species? It's the same thing in the cryptid world, where it's not just Bigfoot and Dogman people are seeing. All of a sudden they're seeing all of these different type of weird type creatures, and I don't
Mhm.
know where they're coming from, if there's a portal that's opened up to all these strange sci-fi creatures, but it's out there. And Dr. Angela T. Smith, we're going to talk more about aliens when we return on Spaced Out Radio. We're having a lot of fun tonight. Aliens, remote viewing. I tell you, this is the perfect night for it. My name is Dave Scott, your host, wearing the most tinfoil than anybody that you know. We'll be back with more Spaced Out Radio when we return. All right, Doc, we are clear.
Good.
Having fun yet?
Yeah. Yeah.
Good.
It's a lot more.
Oh, yeah. More fun to come.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Yeah.
Have I missed anybody in our chat room yet? Cat the Kit. How are you? And who else has showed up here that I haven't seen? All right. That's it. That's it. And now we just wait. And we stare at each other. And we're like, hello. Is it still hot down there?
Oh, in Las Vegas?
Yes.
Yeah, it's cooling off. We had hundreds, high hundreds, but it's cooling off a bit for not by Canadian standards, of course.
Well, let me see. What's my weather like here? Got to a high today of 22 Celsius, and I was sweating like a pig.
What is that Fahrenheit?
Fahrenheit, that's about 71.
We've got that in the mornings, then it goes up to about high 80s now in the afternoon.
Yeah, that's like summertime for us. So let's see here. Tomorrow, a high of 14 Celsius, a low of 3. So that's about 38, 36, somewhere around there. Ooh, Wednesday. Low of -1 or a +1. Yes. It's getting cold. Yep. Yeah, that might be it for double digits here by next Thursday. That might be it for the year. Ooh. Till we hit negative double digits. And there's 6 months of that crap. Yeah, last year we topped out at -40 Celsius,
Wow.
which would be -40 Fahrenheit.
Oh, wow. I've become a desert rat.
Yeah.
I don't do cold anymore.
Oh, 63 Fahrenheit. That's a perfect temperature. That's still shorts weather. Yes, Dogface Simon. I swear, too, that I said the snow was just starting to melt. And here we go again. Here we go again. Wolverine, how you doing? If we're lucky, we will not get snow in October. Because when that snow in October comes, it doesn't leave until April. And I am way too early for snow boots. Connie Willis has not passed away, by the way. She's actually hoping or hosting Coast to Coast tonight. Unless it's her ghost. And I don't think Connie Willis is 78 or 77 years old. Unless she's had some major nip and tucks. All right. Big thank you tonight to Deb ×2, Simon, and Louie for the great super chats. It's a wonderful way to support what we do. Donald Dean, how you doing? And if you haven't already, for just $5 a month, you can join the Space Travelers Club on Patreon. The link is below in the chat room or below in the description on the YouTube page. Lisa Ogier, welcome to SOR Chat. Here we go, second half hour. Hi, Super Duke. Hi, Bobo. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott, the host of this show. Reminder to all of you that if you missed portions of this show or others, you can check out our free archive by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and you can join the Space Travelers Club on Patreon. Here we go. We got the second half hour with Dr. Angela Smith. We are talking aliens right now, an alien species. And Dr. Smith, thank you so much for being here tonight. We very much appreciate you.
Well, thank you for having me.
Right before the break, we were talking about different alien species that have visited this planet, and you think that the majority have not, which I would say is pretty easy to say considering the universe is infinite. We don't know how much life is out there. But what do you think, or who do you think is making their way here?
I think the Nordics definitely. I was telling you a little bit before the show. We have a historic theater there's a historic theater and a theater, a restaurant, hotel, and I used to go there with a friend after we'd been swimming in the morning, and I would say a half dozen times we encountered very strange people. You know, have you ever been in a restaurant and looked across at a table and gone, whoa, that's a weird person over there? Well, we had weird people come into the restaurant when we were having breakfast. We would always go into the little garden room, which was a back room with about four or five tables, and just have breakfast, chat, lady friends chatting, you know. And I'll tell you the most interesting one was this couple came in, and there was a table to the side of ours in the corner. And I looked at this couple and I thought, oh, here we go. You know, it doesn't scare me because they're just visitors. They're visitors here. The woman was maybe under 5 foot, sort of a little on the squat side, a little, I don't want to be judgmental, but I'm trying to be descriptive. And her face had a very reptilian, frog-like look to it. But she was very pleasant, and she spoke to us and said, okay, if we sit here. And I said, sure, help yourself. So she and her companion, who I'll describe in a moment, who was the most weird person, sat together with their backs against the wall, instead of sort of, as a lot of people do, sit opposite each other so they can chat. I think it was he, didn't say anything. She was the one who interacted with us. And that seems to be the pattern. They're usually in pairs. One seems to be knowledgeable and interacts with people, whereas the other one doesn't. It looks like the other one is newer, perhaps just arrived, who knows. This guy was very diminutive. He had a hat, a muffler, dark glasses, a coat, gloves, And as far as I could see, like long trousers and shoes, but I couldn't really see too much because he kind of went behind into the table. His face was pinched, very, very tiny little pointy face. And he didn't speak at all. And he sat down next to the woman. And as she asked us questions, before she asked us the questions like, do you come here often? What's the food like? What did you order? She would look at him and then look at us and ask us the question. So we were, just eating our breakfast, and I was sat looking at them. My friend was opposite me against the window. And when we'd finished, when we left, my friend looked at me and said, "What the hell was that?" Because she was sort of acknowledging of these things, but hadn't really experienced too much. So it really blew her away. So that was the most dramatic one, because I think that was a small gray that was with the woman, and she was perhaps a hybrid, maybe a human reptilian hybrid. But I don't know for sure. I'm just putting labels again. Do you want to hear another one?
I would love to. I'm mesmerized here. Tell me.
Okay. um, one of the students of mine. I used to teach at home. I couldn't because of COVID. Now I've gone to virtual teaching, remote viewing. But one of my students contacted me and said, "Hey, I can't check into my hotel until later, but my plane arrives and I'm coming over to Boulder City." So I said, "Well, why don't we hang out? Why don't we go have lunch at the hotel? And then you can come back to my place and hang out until you're ready to go check into your hotel." So he and I went and had lunch at the hotel, but out in the main restaurant area. And we were talking about remote viewing and just, having something to eat. And then all of a sudden, there was this gentleman behind me asking, he said, "Could I have some of your sugar packets?" And I said, "Of course, help yourself." And I looked up, and there was this very tall, Nordic looking gentleman, blonde, cropped hair, the Nordic style, and smiled. And then he went back to his table. My friend was looking with big eyes. And I said, "What?" He said, "That was weird," he said. I said, "He just wanted some sugar packets." And he said, "No," he said, "he came over, put his hand on your shoulder. You looked at him and he stared into your eyes for a while and then asked for the sugar packets." I have no memory of him looking in my eyes at all. So maybe he was just looking to see if I was a safe person or not. And then afterwards, like, when we get up to go, I want to see if he's got sugar packets on his table, which he did. And he was with a young woman who also looked very Nordic. And they were there, with their hands over their faces, talking to each other. So I said, "Oh, a couple more visitors."
Nevada has a lot of rumors over the years, the decades of aliens visiting the city, that they would
Yeah,
park their UFOs at Area 51 and then be bussed in to Nevada so they could go to I believe it was the Sahara where they used to frequent.
I think so. And the Stardust, I think, as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Have you read is it Richard Hall's books, Millennial Hospitality? Have you read those paperbacks?
Not.
Oh, you've got to read them. The second book is the most interesting. I think there's 5 books in the series. He worked as an airman out at what's now Creech Air Force Base, and it was Indian Springs Air Force Base when he was out there at the end of World War II. And they put him out there as an observer and somebody who let off these weather balloons to
Yes.
look at airspeeds, etc. And he started seeing these really weird animals. He thought they were out in the desert, white coyotes that stood upright, um, white creatures that just ran across the desert. He had no idea because they were running upright and they were not human. So he classified them as animals, or he needed to go eat something, or the heat was getting to him, or he wasn't feeling well. He made all sorts of excuses for seeing these, um, what he thought were apparitions. Until one day he looked out and there were a group of them stood down by the fence. And these were Nordic, what were called the whites. And the woman spoke to him and said, "Can our children watch you send off a balloon?" So he thought, wow, my hallucinations are talking now. So he went over and did the preparations of inflating the balloon and putting the gadgetry on the bottom and letting it off. And he had a theodolite there that measured the wind speed and the distance. And then went back into his post and said, "I need to get more sleep," because he didn't believe what he was seeing, that there were these strange people living out there in the desert that could run across the desert so fast. And, you know, and they actually had children with them. So when he went back to the base, he went and talked to the flight surgeon and said, "I think I'm having hallucinations. I'm out there in the desert. It's either too much heat or I'm not eating enough or I'm not getting enough fluid." And the surgeon says to him, "Oh, don't worry about it. Just go with it." So, which, you know, convinced him even more that he was seeing things until things got weirder and weirder, and he had to accept that they were real flesh and blood entities. So his books write about these experiences, and it seems that they had these whites, and I call them whites because that's what he calls them in the book, had a base further down the valley, and the Air Force was busing them in to Las Vegas, as you've mentioned, and provided them with clothing and the women with makeup and disguised them as nurses and nuns and regular ladies to go into the casinos and get experience of everyday life, everyday civilized, well, not really civilized here in Las Vegas, but regular life. So those are books that you really need to read.
There's some amazing experiences out there, Dr. Angela Smith. I mean, the idea that we are being visited is something that is highly controversial, especially within what is going on with the disclosure movement right now. When
Yeah.
you take a look at the people who are having close encounter experiences, what you know from your studies and the people you've worked with, including ex-military members and current military members, why do you think there's this major cover up on whether or not we've had ET contact?
The conclusion I came to, I did write another book, which was Diary of an Abduction back at the turn of 2000, I think it was 2001. And the conclusion I came to, because I tried to capture some of my experiences in that, was that the government, the powers that be, knew about the ETs, the visitors, but couldn't control them, couldn't explain them. And if they did, they would just have egg on their face. It would be embarrassing to admit that they didn't know who they were, what they would do, what they were doing here. And then it sort of changed. And I'm so happy that Hal Puthoff, who was one of the original remote viewing pioneers, at Stanford Research Institute, decided to become involved with the, I forget his name, the musician, and the group that's, yes, Tom Long, yes. And up to that point, I think even Paul Smith, because he'd always towed the established line of, no, all of these people that report these experiences, it's all conspiracy theory, or they're psychotic, or it's all illusion, it's swamp gas, until Scott and I published Voices from the Cosmos. And I thought I'd better tell Paul, because he is my trainer, he is my colleague, to let him know this book's coming out, because of his adamantness about this is terrible stuff, and these people need to, stop talking about it. So I told him that about the book, because he came to visit Boulder City, and he said, "Oh yeah, all that's real." And my jaw almost hit the floor because it was a complete 180. He doesn't believe it, but he doesn't believe that happened. But that's what I experienced. And after that, then of course the disclosure came. But disclosure is a little bit like the second coming. Everyone talks about it, expects it, and then it comes out in little dribs and drabs. So I'm happy about what's happening right now, but in my perspective, it's too slow.
I remember having a conversation with Lou Elizondo, the former head of the ATIP program, and I asked him point blank whether or not he felt humanity was ready, and he kind of gave a yes and no type answer. Do you believe, with all the religions in the world, with all the different, things that are going on with depression, anxiety, financial situation, do you think that humanity in general is ready for some sort of ET contact?
I think so, on two levels. One is that I think regular folk who've seen UFOs, who've had ET contact, who've from their own personal experience and haven't been allowed to talk about it. There are, I don't know the percentages, I haven't looked at modern percentages, but there are so many of them that absolutely know that there are ETs, there are UFOs, they've seen them with their own eyes, they've photographed them. So I think people will be interested to see some more information come out about this and some more acceptance. And regarding religions, I don't know if you know of Colonel John Alexander.
Yes.
Yeah, his wife, back around 81, 82, no, 91, 92, sorry, 93, in that time period, she had written a questionnaire that was sent out to all the leaders of the world's religions about ETs, UFOs, etc., and how their religion would react to the acceptance of the reality of the topic. And it concluded that most of the religions, apart from the very strongly evangelicals, felt that they were real, that they were also God's creatures. That was I think, even the Vatican. So sadly, this questionnaire, this study that she did, wasn't widely publicized, because I think that would make a big difference. I wish she would come forward and perhaps republish it, because I think it was a very important study.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, everyday people having these experiences, in your opinion, then, why do you think the government has such a hard time admitting to it?
I'll tell you my strata theory.
Sure.
I think society is in stratas or layers. At the at the bottom is a big chunk of people, everyday people, just your regular everyday people who, as I said, have seen UFOs, seen aliens, had experiences, and they know this stuff is real. Above them are several layers of the church, science, and the skeptics. And at the very, very top are a thin layer of people in the know, such as Lou Elizondo, etc., and Hal Puthoff, who know this stuff is real and acknowledge it and talk about it openly amongst themselves. But in between, of course, with the scientists, the church leaders, the skeptics, who absolutely denounce the topics. For example, the churches say it's all the work of the devil. The scientists say it's not scientific. We don't have a shred of evidence for these topics. And the skeptics say, well, it's all imagination. And at the very least, it's fraud. So the people at the top and the people at the bottom keep quiet.
So why do you believe in this instead of taking the government road and thinking this is fraud?
For me personally,
Yes.
yeah, because I have my own experiences.
But even the people who are calling it fraud have had their own experiences too.
Of course, yes. And I've talked to them and they won't admit it publicly. Yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean,
even skeptics.
it's kind of like shooting a pistol with one hand and taking a bullet in the other.
Yeah. But perhaps this will be changing now with this new era of I call it partial disclosure. This is not full disclosure. Because now they're taking the stance, well, these UFOs may be harmful, there's a security risk, et cetera, et cetera. So it's not full disclosure, but it's a beginning.
See, I like to call it confirmation.
Okay. Yeah, that's a better
Right?
word.
Yeah, I like to
Yeah.
call it confirmation because they are confirming the phenomena is real. And the other thing that I have learned too that I'm kind of get interesting your opinion on it. One thing that I've learned especially this year is that the term UAP really means man-made objects. UFOs has nothing to do with UAP.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel that they've sanitized the topic, getting away, because it used to be if a UFO was seen, say, over Las Vegas, and Channel 8 announced it and did a little piece on it. And then there would always be the giggle factor. And they'd say, oh, we're going to have little green men here soon. There was always that mandatory giggle factor at the end. That stopped. That's changed.
Yeah, I mean, the stigma has changed, but you got to, I guess, in my point is the newfound ufologists who came into the game as of 2017. I don't think they fully understand or have taken the time to learn the history of this all, that this subject is much bigger than the start of the USS Nimitz. This goes
Yeah.
back to
Yeah.
abductees and government cover-ups and government threats on life and potentially people taken down because they got too close to the truth. I mean, there's a real ugliness that still
Mhm.
foreshadows this
Yeah.
entire topic.
Yeah. Well, it's like my business client, after we'd been doing these ET interviews for the year, and I mentioned he came under surveillance. He had his mail tampered with, his emails tampered with. A car would sit out in his cul-de-sac until he went out to get his mail, and then it would screech off. They filmed him and photographed him in public.
Dr. Angela Smith, I'm going to get you to hold on right there because we are going to go to break here at the top of the hour. More remote viewing and extraterrestrial species when we return for hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio next. Oh, this is great so far. Just
Good,
great. You're so
good.
smart.
I just tell it as it is.
Well, we thank you for it. We thank you for it. I'm just going to step away here. I'm going to put you back in the green room, and I'll be right
Okay.
back. Okay? We'll be right back, people. I promise. We got 2 hours left. I promise. All right. I am back. We got about a minute to go here. There's Dr. Smith.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And thank you, Simon, for that super chat. All right, a big thank you to Louis ×2, Deb ×2, Simon ×2, and Vaughn for the super chats. Very much appreciate the love and support. And if you haven't already, for just $5 a month, you can join the Space Travelers Club. Head on over to Patreon. The link is in the description below on YouTube. Shop at our store, spacedoutradio.com. And we got about 10 seconds. Here we go.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Here we go with hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Thank you for joining us. My name is Dave Scott, your host behind the microphone and bringing you the woo each and every night. We want to say hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/spaced out radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Okami. Okami is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and you can join the Space Travelers Club on Patreon. Here we go with Dr. Angela Smith. We're talking alien species and remote viewing. We're continuing with the aliens tonight. Dr. Smith, thank you so much for being here with us.
Oh, thank you.
The fact that people are having extraordinary experiences, mainly with these little gray aliens that stand between 3.5 feet and 5.5 feet tall. You know, they have the long, big, black, almond-shaped eyes, a slit for a mouth, 2 little holes for nostrils, and 3 fingers on each hand with an opposing thumb. I mean, these are what nightmares are made of, yet many people out there are having these experiences. Out of all the people you have talked to about this subject, do we know where they're coming from? Do we know what this is all about?
I've heard some theories of, Alpha Centauri, that region, because there's a cluster of places out there. But of course, those are our names for them. So if during an encounter somebody says, "Are you from Alpha Centauri?" then I imagine the ETs would go, "Where's that?" because those are all our names for the constellations and the regions of space. So I don't think anybody really knows. There's also this question of whether they're physical or interdimensional. And my feeling is from talking, doing a lot of study, talking to folks, is that they are physical, but they travel interdimensionally. So it's possible that they could come from a long way away through an interdimensional route to arrive here. So I don't really know where they're from.
Your best estimation, what is with the science experiments they are conducting on humans?
From what they've said in interviews, the ET interviews, was that the Greys particularly who are doing most of the abductions, but also aided sometimes by the other races. We called them races. Said that they, and this is where I disagreed with them and where I knew this was not just my imagination doing these interviews, is the ETs, the greys, the talls and the small greys, thought of the abductions as beneficial to humans. Now, you and I would say, no way. It can cause a lot of angst and, a lifetime of trauma to some people. But they said, no, we send out this is what the ET said, we send out the hybrids, etc., as ambassadors out into, and, in space travel. So they're ambassadors for the Greys and for the Nordics. And of course, I disagree with that, it is traumatic for people. It's not, to us, it's not beneficial. It's not a beneficial process. So there's lots of disagreement. The other races, I did talk to the reptilians, although they didn't initially want to talk to me during one of the interviews. And of course, this is all, mind to mind, this was not face to face. And they didn't answer a lot of the questions that we had to ask them. But one of them was about interacting with humans on board craft. Did they ever interact with humans on board the craft? And they said, yes, they did. And then I asked them, because I was able to type in questions that I had thought of, clarifying questions. Said, well, if you met a human on board a craft, what would you do? And they said, well, we would make a loud noise at them, which gave me chills. And I said, what if they didn't move then? If you made the loud noise at them, they said, we pushed them. So again, that's really chilling. So I don't know too much about, I haven't read too many accounts of people encountering reptilians on board craft. But that's what the reptilians reported.
I have to ask about these alien interviews. Who conducted them? And are the answers from real aliens, or are they channeled answers through a person?
Well, I was the only one that did the interviews. And I'm a scientist, so I try to stay as neutral as possible. Even my clients said, well, how do we know that these answers aren't coming from some young man doing this in his mother's basement? And I said, because each of the entities, each of the interviews is totally different. For example, I interviewed the orbs. The orbs are sentient, and they are carriers of information. And when I tried interacting with them, the responses came back with multiple words combined, because they're, that's their mode of communication, and I had to grasp at the nearest meaning to type down, so I can't say that the orb interview was as factual as it could have been, because I was grasping at whatever came through. The Nordics were very, very forthcoming, and I think they are the closest to us in thought and physique. And then, of course, the the reptilians were really not. There was a lot of no responses from them. They just didn't want to share. But they said what their roles were was they helped chart the craft where they need to go, help with navigation, etc., as well as, and so they traveled very often with the Greys.
And how did you make this contact?
I would sit, I already had all the questions typed into my computer. So sat at my computer with the mindset of doing interviews. I'm not a channeler, I'm not a medium, I don't give over my body to discarnate entities. I'm a scientist first and foremost. And I did this because the client had asked me to, let's try this experiment. And he was always pushing the envelope of remote viewing, even though we did mostly business remote viewing. So it was one of those sit down and let's see where we go with this, because I'm always curious. I'm always like my client. I always like to push the envelope. And so when I launched into that very first one, as I said before, I felt very foolish and very strange sitting there doing this project and going, I'm going to talk to an alien. Wow, that's way out. Once I got into an interview, it seemed to flow. And it took over an hour and a half to get through all the questions. And these were the kinds of questions, and you can see those, In fact, I have an Excel database that was put together by a colleague of mine, Dee Garcia. And she, in this Excel database, she put all the ETs, the different groups down the side, and all the traits at the very top, and constructed this database that I'm able to, if anybody wants to email me, I'll be happy to share that. It's free, shareable. It's a very large database. You have to scroll across and down to see all the entries, but it gives you a better idea of the differences between the ET groups and their responses. So I'm very happy to share that.
Okay, that's wonderful. I mean, the idea that you were getting positive interaction from these species somewhere out there at any time during, you being a scientist, did you think that this was completely false or somebody's playing a trick on you? And how did you confirm that there was no trick being played?
I tried to remain very factual. And if a response came in that didn't seem right, I always asked confirming questions or corroborating questions. What do you mean by that? Tell me more about it. Why should I? Yeah, and there were times where I honestly didn't believe what was coming in, but I wrote it down anyway because it was their thoughts, feelings, behavior, etc. Morality, etc., is alien. It's alien to us. So it was coming in from, into my consciousness and coming out of me, a human. So there was obviously some change to it to make it understandable, because I don't speak alien. So I was doing the very best I could to report what I was perceiving. And I've got used to that doing remote viewing projects. Whatever data comes in, you have to report it down very factually, or set it aside as what we call analytical overlay, where you feel perhaps your subconscious is making more of it than it should be, so you have to set it aside. But I tried to stay very factual and very scientific during these. But that's not to say that it was totally factual, because it came from them through my subconscious.
Okay, was your paper ever peer reviewed, or did you have other scientists look at it?
No, because this was a business arrangement with a client.
Right.
It was not a scientific project. And it sat in my computer for years, because the client, once he got spooked, he said, let's stop this and get back to business remote viewing. Just keep them in your computer. So I had them there for years. I think it was about 7 years. And the client retired and sold his businesses and went abroad, then came back to the West Coast, the East Coast there, and passed away. Um, and I thought, we'd always talked about writing a book together. And he'd always given permission for this stuff to be published eventually. So I started putting out these ET interviews one at a time to, I don't know if you ever knew Donald Ware. He had a group of about, I don't know, 600-700 people that he would send out interesting tidbits of information. So he said, why don't I send out one of these interviews a week and see the reaction? Because I thought people would come back and say, what a load of hooey, this is ridiculous, this is garbage. I was quite prepared for that and quite prepared to just bury the interviews again for as long as need be, because I was not, it was just interesting. I thought, there might be other people out there interested. The response was amazing. They wanted more. They wanted to hear more. And and then one day there was an email from one of my colleagues who, because I did all this under a pseudonym of Rosetta Stone.
Very nice.
Yeah, because I didn't, at that time, didn't want to out myself, because I feared all this ridicule that would come back and criticism. But as I said, the response was great. And Scott Jones, who was my colleague, longtime colleague, came back and said, who is this guy that's putting all these things out? We need to hear more of these. Why doesn't he come forward? So I contacted him and said, hey, Scott, it's me. And he said, okay, well, we need to write a book together. And that's how Voices from the Cosmos came about.
Okay, a couple more questions about the ET side of everything. You hear about the Council of 12, you hear about the Galactic Federation, you hear about all this stuff. In your contact with these, do you buy that? Do you believe there is a council out there that is watching to see humankind mature to the point where we could be invited to the party?
That was one of the questions on the list that we asked them. And some of the groups said, yeah, of course we belong to the Confederation and we have to follow the rules and regulations. And others said, no way are we going to belong to a confederation. There was a mixed group across all the ET races of some who were very much in the Confederation and others who weren't. And others that, were like, what's a confederation? So they didn't know what it was. So it was a mixed bag of responses.
And what do you believe personally?
I think it's not as clear cut as we would like it to be. I think it's probably conventions amongst certain races that have been around for maybe millennia, and others are included in it and some are not. But one of the reasons that I put value on what the client gave me to do was not just that he was a brilliant business owner, a very smart man, and he had multiple businesses across the States and abroad, was that after he passed away, I decided to do a little snooping because I always felt there was more to him than he told me. And I couldn't ask him because I'm sure he would have denied it. But after he passed, I went back to England for 6 months and came back. I thought I wanted to see whether I wanted to retire in England. And he said, as long as I had email and et cetera, then, phone and email, then we could still work together. I came back to Boulder City after 6 months because I missed the warmth. And I sent my change of address to his office and I got on a mailing list. And I suddenly started getting all of this literature. I think it got, into this routine mailing list. And I was getting conference materials out of San Diego for irregular warfare.
That's
And I'm
weird.
going, what on earth is irregular warfare? And so I opened up this pamphlet, started reading through, and it was all the some of the military groups, some of the defense contractors that got together and did these conferences on what they also call asymmetric warfare, which is they use unconventional means for warfare. And I thought, oh, there's my client's business address, but it's this military Navy captain who's giving a talk. That's interesting. So I then started, doing a little bit more research. And then when he passed away, because I felt kind of nervous about doing it, because I thought, well, what have we been doing all these years? Who have we been doing this work for? So when he passed, I felt free then to do a little bit more. I don't call it snooping as such, but a little bit of research. And I found online a visa application that had a Virginia company that also had the name of his company, because there were multiple companies with his company names throughout the state. And at the very bottom was my client's information, his office information on this visa application. So there was a connection. It was like a smoking gun. And I felt kind of nervous when I did that. I hid it away.
One thing that I have learned recently is how many private companies and defense companies are actually secretly looking into all of these subjects. Everything from near-death experiences to cattle mutilations to ET contact to paranormal activity. There is a bunch of them doing this privately because they don't want the public to know that they're studying this research.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Basically, it's this secrecy, it's this plausible denial concept. If you can deny it, then you can keep it secret, and you can spend money and just pretend to be somebody else or something else.
Do you think it is a disclosure for dollars, so to speak, that they're fighting
Well,
for?
there's certainly a lot of black budget money goes into these companies and keeps them going, provides jobs. So maybe, I don't know. I haven't been in that strata of society, so I don't know.
Right. We got about 45 seconds to go. Do you believe the United States government is in contact with extraterrestrial species?
With what I've researched, yes.
And what leads you to that?
Having been at the Pear Lab and having worked with Robert Bigelow and other groups, you hear things, you read things, and you put two and two together.
Well, that's something we need to look at another time, because when we come back from the break, we are getting into remote viewing. What's it like? How do we do it? What is the purpose? Dr. Angela Smith is with us. She is a remote viewing expert. And we're going to learn all about it within the next 30 minutes here on Spaced Out Radio. So stay tuned. Maybe we'll remote view you sitting in the bubble bath listening to this show tonight. We'll be right back. Bubble bath.
I know there's so much stuff.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Oh, what a good night. I told you this was going to be fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
Area
That was great.
51, how are you? Lord William, good to see you. And Android Paranormal sitting in the bathtub right now. Bears eat beets. Bears were eating my garbage the other day. And there was no beets in there. You don't have bears where you are, do you? Dr. Smith? You don't have bears, do you?
Bears. I think there's some up in the mountains, but none in Las Vegas.
No, but even south, going into the Rockies, there's no bears there.
I'm sure there are. Yeah. I don't know. Aren't bears everywhere? All over the world.
Black bears, yeah.
Black bears, grizzlies. Yeah.
Grizzlies are big.
I've never seen a grizzly. I've seen many other times, but not in person.
I have only seen. I saw a mama and her two cubs.
I think the closest I was at to a bear was in West Orange, New Jersey, and a black bear was running up the road, but away from us. So that was my encounter with a black bear.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, it's definitely bear season here, so it's I like it. I like the bears.
Yeah.
It's the mountains I don't like.
Yeah, we have coyotes here and of course pumas, wildcats.
Yes. Puma, mountain lion, cougar, all the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have them. I've only seen two since I moved up here.
I've not seen one, but they've seen footprints down by Lake Mead in the mud, and they're supposedly up in the mountains. They go after the bighorn sheep.
Yeah. Around here they go for the deer, the rabbits, a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Dogs, cats.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we have about 2 minutes.
Yeah, the coyotes here take cats and small dogs if they're let out. Yeah.
Same as the foxes here. We got foxes here. I love the foxes.
Do you have wolves?
Out in the forest we do.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, out in the forest we got everything. We do. We got everything. All right, we got just over a minute to go here.
Yeah, we have a lot of wildlife here because where I'm living is on the edge of Boulder City, overlooking the lake. And, yeah, so we get a lot of wildlife that comes up through the yard. Road runners and quail, rabbits, coyotes. I haven't seen any snakes so far up here.
Good. I don't like the snakes.
Yeah, but we do have snakes, so they are around.
Not me, man. I see a little garden snake and I am out. I am like screaming, running like a banshee.
They're probably more afraid of you than you are of them.
That's okay. I'm not willing to take the chance. 1 second here. Thank you, Simon times 2, Vaughn, Louis times 2, and Debster times 2 for the great super chats. Appreciate the love. And here we go, everyone. We pass the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears. Reminder to all of you that if you missed portions of this show or others, you can check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and you can join us on the Space Travelers Club on Patreon. For the final time tonight, Dr. Angela Smith is here, and we're going to learn all about remote viewing. What's it like? What's it for? How did we come across this? Dr. Smith, how did we find out about remote viewing?
Okay, well, there is a 50-year history, starting with Ingo Swann, who was being researched in New York at the American Society for Psychical Research, heard about Hal Puthoff out at Stanford Research Institute in California, who was had some theories about intuitive psychic stuff being related to some quantum mechanical processes. So Ingo contacted him and said, I want to come out and visit with you guys, and all this is documented. Visit with you guys and maybe study with you and to share my ideas with you. So he went out, and I think he was out there a total of 9 years, not only following their guidelines, but also saying, oh, we could refine the project this way or that way. And of course, there was a whole plethora of people, I love that word, who came in also and were researched and were, studied. So first of all, they were doing something called coordinate remote viewing, where either a geographic location coordinates or an encrypted coordinate, which was like a random number and a series of numbers, was given to a viewer, and they weren't called specifically remote viewers at that time. They were subjects in a lab, in a research lab. But Hal Puthoff was working with them primarily, and then Russell Targ came in, his colleague, and they had a huge program going for many years, and sponsored by a lot of the defense intelligence agencies, CIA, DIA, etc. And then Ingo eventually decided that he wanted to teach some groups more specifically, because he had this idea of stages of doing it very formally, so that he could actually teach people to do what he did naturally. And the military took it upon themselves and opened up a research program that became eventually, after many iterations of their name, the Stargate Unit at Fort Meade, Maryland. And of course, Paul Smith was trained there, and Lynn Buchanan, David Morehouse, some of the key people in the current modern remote viewing field. He taught them a very structured pen and paper, verbal and written protocol that took the viewer through stages, gradually approaching the target, getting more and more information about the target. And it's very specific. You have to keep to this protocol but it's almost like a do this, then you'll get this. If you don't get this, then you do this. It's not everybody's cup of tea. There's some people who actually hate controlled remote viewing, which is what it's called. And it came out of more natural remote viewing, extended remote viewing, stream of consciousness remote viewing, which is still around. And that's how I came into remote viewing before I got trained by the military guys, was stream of consciousness, where you get in the zone, get your target, and go there and get the information, write it down, record it, and do some sketches. So there is a difference between the more stream of consciousness, open-ended kind of remote viewing, and the very, very strict coordinate remote viewing, or controlled remote viewing, that was brought in by Ingo Swann for the military. A lot of people think now that controlled remote viewing is the only remote viewing, because it takes you through pen and paper stages, which are very, very strictly controlled, but it does get you data. You just start off with a coordinate, which is an alphanumeric or the date or whatever your tasker or your client wants to give you, with no other upfront information. Most viewing is done what we call blind. So you just get this coordinate that's, I think of it as GPS for the subconscious. But I do both. I do both ERV, extended remote viewing, stream of consciousness, remote viewing, because that's how I came into the field. Then I went and trained with Paul, and I went and trained with Lynn. And now if I'm doing specific tasking for a particular client, they usually let you know what protocol they want you to use. So I can do either. So there are now many, many schools out there. Controlled remote viewing is still, I think of as the gold standard, because you do the protocol, you get the data. With the ERV, with more stream of consciousness, as you've mentioned, your own imaginings, idea, the noise, the mental noise sometimes comes in, and it takes a strong remote viewer to break through that mental noise. So there's just a huge range of remote viewing methods out there now, and you pay your bucks and you take your choice.
I want to quickly ask you the purpose of remote viewing. Is it for third eye spying, like when we heard stories of them trying to remote view into the Kremlin or other places, or is it what's the purpose of it?
Well, it definitely was when the Stargate unit were working with it. That was, their purpose. Now it's used from everything from finding a murderer, finding missing people, locations, finding like a realtor wanting the best location for, to buy. There are as many different types of remote viewing applications as viewers or as trainers, because it has multiple uses.
Okay, so what would a business say use it for?
My client used it for example, he would say, this was post 9/11 when he contacted me and I started working with him. So he was very conscious about any major events that might impact his business. So as well as the coordinate, which was the GPS, the address of the target, he would say, at such and such a date, will there be any events that will negatively impact my business? So I and some other remote viewers would sit down with pen and paper and do a project and see what came in, and then would send that information to the client, which he found very helpful and very useful because we picked up all sorts of things for him.
And give our audience an example of something you would target.
One of the things I was targeted with was Amelia Earhart. Where's Amelia Earhart? Where's her plane? And I was targeted twice on that, once by an structural engineer, and the second time much later, and he didn't know about the other work that I'd done, said, okay, we need to go find Amelia Earhart. And I did the project, and then I brought in some of my other viewers that I bring in occasionally, and perceived that she was in a prison in a Japanese occupied island in the middle of the Pacific, and that she died there. So there was a lot more. I mean, I've written 2 books, Seer and Scribe, that contain a lot of these cases. And for years, I wrote all this up, and I gave talks on it and wrote about it. And it wasn't until a couple of years ago that 2 researchers went out to the Navy archives in Washington, D.C., and found, in fact, documentation there in the Navy archives that said that Amelia Earhart had been a prisoner of the Japanese in Saipan, Garapan prison on Saipan Island in the Pacific Islands. And it's quite likely she died there. They're still looking for her plane, and also her navigator, Noonan, also was there in that prison. And the people there actually remember her being there, the people of the island.
Oh,
So,
really?
yeah. So this is not, it doesn't go public, people don't know. They're still looking for Amelia. So that was one of the major projects that I did.
And what's your percentage of accuracy?
I know from my training, when I've looked at my training sessions and compared them with the feedback, because there are certain protocols we could use, I'm around about 70 to 78% accurate.
That's pretty good.
It's workable. It's useful for work. Yeah.
That is very good. Yeah, so you fully have to trust what you were seeing at that time. So with Amelia Earhart, the fact that you were approaching there, how did you see that she was in a Japanese prison camp? Like, what gave you that clue? What tipped you off?
Because in the first project that I did for the engineer, I saw them come down on an island, on like a reef, and because they wanted a better radio signal. And then they were picked up by a rowboat with Japanese soldiers. And she was saying, I don't understand these, because I was picking up this information. She couldn't understand what they were saying, but they had guns, and they took them in a rowboat to a bigger boat, and then to a prison. And then later on, when I did the project again, then I and many other of the viewers, because there were about 10 of us, that did blind tasking. And I knew where I was going to look, because I can do that. I can set aside anything else and just hone in on what I need to find. They all came back with very similar information. It was a prison. They did drawings of the prison, and the area, and the Japanese flag, and a lot of information. So, that's how we knew where she was and what was happening with her.
Well, if there is information written down that she was in a Japanese jail or prison during that time, why has it been so hard to to confirm that?
Well, these journalists have confirmed it. They went on to it was a documentary program. I forget the actual name of the program, but they went on one of the documentaries, one of the better known ones, and they went out to Saipan and they interviewed people and they went to the archives and they showed the archives, so, but it's just, there's some people who don't want to believe, they don't want to understand. There's also, a lot of people have said to me, and this was important too, I'll just add this in quickly. People said, well, if she was a prisoner of the Japanese, why didn't the Americans go and pick her up and rescue her? Well, at the time, there was a war going on, and the Americans had broken the Japanese code, is what I heard from a military colleague. If the Americans had said, oh, we know Amelia is there on Saipan, it would have indicated they had broken the Japanese code. And they still wanted to go on accessing, the information from the Japanese. So she was basically left there.
Are there still remote viewing groups within the government that are targeting areas, whether it was, say, Osama bin Laden when he was alive, or what's happening with Vladimir Putin right now?
I'm sure they are. I've heard rumors, but I don't know for sure. But I think there are.
Would it be prudent to be doing something like that?
If it's sanctioned by the military or the government, then, it would be financed.
Is there still a program that finances? Or that's
well, my answer is I don't know, but my gut feeling is that there are.
Now, you talk about using remote viewing to find criminals in cases, whether it's murder or kidnapping or anything like that. How does that work?
I'll give you an example. How much time do we have?
We got about 6 minutes.
Okay, I'll try and keep this short. I was tasked quite a few years ago by a colleague. He said, I've got a project for you. He approached me at a conference. He said, here's the coordinate. And he gave me a series of letters and numbers. He said, see what you get. And I did stream of consciousness remote viewing, ERV, and saw this body of water, brackish water, coming out from an estuary of an island, a lot of, brackish kind of water with this seaweed, kelp-like seaweed, and a dead body in the water. So I wrote that up, gave it to my colleague. He said, no, that can't be. He said, this is my friend. He's been missing for 4 weeks in California. We need to find him. I said, I will task a few other viewers blindly without telling them my results and see what they get. And they got very similar information too. Turned out that this Denver DJ went out to California, got befriended by this guy who wanted to sail around the world, but also took away the DJ's inheritance, and eventually killed him and dumped him off his boat off of Catalina Island. So we were able then to do some profiling, some location work, and the FBI were involved. The DJ, the sheriff's office wasn't Catalina, I think it was the LA Sheriff's Office, became involved. And they knew about remote viewing, so they were comfortable with accepting the information. And even were interviewed on a TV show where they said, yeah, we'd heard about remote viewing, we got this data, and we were able to eventually apprehend the guy. So that's a very successful way to use remote viewing.
I love it. I absolutely love it. What is something you would want to target? And have you tried to target extraterrestrials by doing that?
I don't anymore. I'd rather just meet them in person. I'd rather, meet the visitors. Because if you target the ETs, as you say, it's difficult. Their thoughts, feelings, interactions, etc., are alien, and I've been there, done that. So I really don't need to do any more work on that. But I'm interested in contacting and perhaps documenting interactions with Earth-based ET groups.
So where do you think we're hiding these toys?
All the toys, air bases, etc.
Hypothetically speaking, I asked a friend of mine who was in the know about stuff like this, and his answer was, "What if they don't land?" And I said, "What?" And he's like, "What if they don't land?" He goes, "Dave, an American jet fighter never has to land because we have in-flight refueling." He goes, "If we have black triangles," he goes, "who says they have to land?"
And then if they're interdimensional, they don't have to land. They can just go in between wherever they go.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the way it seems to go. It's the way it seems to go. With 2 minutes to go, what would you like, or what would you encourage our audience to get into remote viewing? Why would you do that?
Think about your own style of mental processing. Are you more of a sequential person? You like stages, you like A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, 4, or are you more stream of consciousness? And then look for various trainers that will train you in that modality. Because if you're more a stream of consciousness person and you go do CRV, you're probably going to hate it because it's very restricting. So just look for trainers that will work with your type of processing. I think that's the major thing.
And how can you and find your books?
Say that again.
How can people get a hold of you and find your books?
They can find me at my website is mindwiseconsulting.com, and my email is mindwiseconsulting@gmail.com.
Wow.
Very simple.
Quickly, before I have to say goodnight to you, how often do you remote view?
It varies. It goes in phases. There's sometimes where I'm busy doing a lot of remote viewing, and other times where it's quiet. So it depends. I just go with the flow.
So not once a week, once every 2 weeks, or just whenever you feel like it.
Whenever I get tasked, which we call it tasking, when a
Right.
inquiry comes in to do a project.
I can see that. Well, Dr. Angela Smith, it has been an absolute pleasure having you here on Spaced Out Radio tonight. Thank you, and I can't wait to do this again.
Thank you for having me. This is wonderful.
It's been a lot of fun for sure. So thank you very, very much. And coming up next, Terry Hall is going to be with us. It's the UFO report for the final hour of Spaced Out Radio. We're going to skip Among the Missing tonight. But that's okay. We got lots of UFO news coming at you right after this. Stay tuned. Hour 3 is next. Thank you, Doc.
Well, thank you. This was fun.
That was a lot of fun. That was. Next time I bring you on, we're going to concentrate fully on the remote viewing process because that just
Okay.
intrigues me.
Sure. Yeah.
All right, we'll let you get some sleep.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, and all best wishes for your show.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you. You too.
Dr. Angela Smith, everybody. I'm going to quickly step away, and then I will be right back. Be right there. Quiet. Dave's back. Dave's back. Shh. Shh. I'm tired. Dogman UK, how are you? D. Henderson, how are you? Area 51, Thurston Howell III, Stargazer. Good to see you. CS, nice to see you. The gorgeous Amy WC, what's up? Sovereign Farts, hope you're farting hard tonight. I'm not going to lie, I'm a little bloated tonight. You ever get those nights where you're just like so thirsty and you're like pounding back the water? Hey, Terry, I'm coming to you right off the top here, so you might want to log in. I am totally having one of those bloated nights. I'm probably going to get up like 5-6 times during the night tonight. Just go to the bathroom. It's going to piss me off. Pun intended. Thank you to Lord, William, Simon ×2, Vaughn, Louis ×2, Deb ×2 for the super chats. And for just $5 a month, you can join the Space Travelers Club. The link is below in the show description on YouTube. Here we go.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Here we go with the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Alchemy. Alchemy is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and you can join us on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. We're going to head right now to the UFO report, filling in for little Timmy Senor, who is sick tonight. Here's Terry Hall and his mustache.
Nobody's going to know. They're going to know.
Terry Hall, it's been a busy week in the UFO world. There's been a bunch of new videos that have been released by Border Patrol, of all things. You know, but I was looking at some of these videos today, my man, and I'm telling you, I turned them off. They looked so fake and they looked so ridiculous. They were calling, like, here's an example, okay? Here's an example. They had this helicopter following what was allegedly a UFO, and you could tell that it was like one of those hang gliders, and the guy is going around in the hang glider flying around, and you could tell he was a drug dealer or a drug smuggler because you could see this big, like, hockey bag drop from the hang glider. And then the hang glider gets out, like, oh no, this is UAP. This is UAP. Ridiculous, Terry.
It's just like on the other side of the world with the whole deal with the Chinese, where now surface to ground missile or ground to air missiles are now UAP. Those are UAP now. This is just. The whole Border Patrol thing, though, that got me about as much as the executive summary of the NASA report from the other day. But I mean, why? Why is it? Is it because they say they've relaxed being able to report UFOs? And if so, where do you report to them? Because the UFO hotline's still MIA. There's no phone number. There's no website. So how are they just going to keep dropping splashes, stuff like this? Especially, I mean, this is going to go on the meme calendar for the year. You've got the Chinese balloons in February, and now you've got now you've got this. I can't imagine the memes that are going to come out because of this. Oh my goodness,
Okay.
this is just typical UFO community stuff.
If you were watching on our YouTube channel, so for our radio audience, you could go on our YouTube channel and watch this after. There's a video of an A-10 Thunderbolt flying through the sky. Okay, and they claim that there is a UAP that all of a sudden starts following the plane. Now, the A-10 has a top speed of just over 400 miles an hour. It's not a fast aircraft. Okay, but if you look on the screen, all of a sudden you'll see this dot kind of flying around it. The jet passes it, and then it looks like this dot starts following the jet. The problem is, in certain frames, if you can watch it, you can see wings on it because it's a bird. It's a bird, people. It's got wings. You know, I mean, I look at this and I'm just like, okay, whatever it may be. But to me, it's looking like it's got wings. And trust me, I want these videos to be real. Okay, there's nothing more that I want than for them to be real. But they're not showing us anything really good. Like here's a fast moving, what looks to be an orb over, I don't know, an airport. Okay, looks like an airport. I don't know. Terry, what are your thoughts?
That's the one that I saw that puzzled me. I was just going to make the comment. Is this going to be one of those to where they're going to drop a ton of them and then maybe we'll find a jewel out of the plethora of, being spaced out radio? But if you watch that one, I don't know. To me, that almost again looks like a bird. But I don't know how good their thermal cameras are either at keeping things in frame and not stretching and gleaming out. And so this one kind of puzzled me. Some of the other ones that they posted are I mean, they're Sunday funnies funny, but some of the other ones that they posted, this one changes speed. But it doesn't really do anything erratic. It's just a solid flat. No lefts, no rights, no ups, no downs. It's just flat across. And
Yeah.
just, you know. So like I said, is it going to be, are they going to drop enough of them to where there's enough to go through to where we might find something? Or is this just
Well,
another way to muddy up the waters?
they're saying there were 10 videos released. And this looks like it's around the border patrol between the United States and Mexico. And in this video, there's like this white orb that seems to be moving extremely slowly towards the buildings. I mean, to me, that looks like a floating balloon. This one looks like a balloon that's kind of been caught in the wind, you know, and really isn't doing much. It's not making any major turns or anything, moving very slowly by a bunch of semi trucks. Doesn't look to be that high off the ground, and then it seems to lose its steam like a balloon does, and
Just
then
dies out behind the hill there.
dies out.
That's like I said, is it just another attempt to muddy
It does come
up
back.
the waters?
It does come back, but it looks like a tinfoil balloon that's caught in the wind.
Yeah, it's
Right?
not doing anything. Really, it's not doing anything that would draw your attention and make you think anything but It's
No.
what you're describing. It's like a halfway filled helium balloon. It's just caught in a air eddy or a current.
Right. I don't know what the hell we're looking at in this video. It just seems like we're looking at a bunch of tall grass that's surrounding some buildings, and then a human looking thing running really fast, like a video game from Atari running through.
Now
That's
this one tied into another one that was similar to it in Chicago. But they're calling these light beings. And the quote unquote light being that was filmed in Chicago was actually in the sky.
well, do you
This
remember the
this one looks more like
Atari
a
video game Pitfall, where the way the guy ran? We're
yeah.
going back to
That's
about 1984 here.
yeah.
This looks
If
like
it
that character from Pitfall.
looks completely like the little pixelated fellow that used to, yeah, it sure does. But
Yeah.
I mean, whatever it is, it's if it's a guy playing, if it's a guy from Pitfall, he's on turbo boost because he's making pretty good tracks.
Uh, oh my goodness. This is called having fun tonight on the show. I'm trying to find the video to the I think this might be it. This
I
is
can't even
this
believe I remembered that the guy had turbo boost on Pitfall.
right? This video here has, it looks like a black type orb filmed from a helicopter, and all of the data that the helicopter puts up on the head up display has been taken away. Yeah, I think that this is the one that I believe is the hang glider.
That's yeah, that is this one. And see, that's what makes me wonder about what actually the type cameras that they're using.
Well, this is definitely footage from a helicopter, but I mean, this one, if this is the one, we're all of a sudden going to see the hang glider get close to the ground and actually drop a baggage, like it's a a somebody who's maybe remote controlling a hang glider. There's a great view of it, and all of a sudden it's going to circle. It's going to drop a bag coming up here. It's like a remote.
Actually, if you look behind that one, Dave, you can almost see the exhaust coming out of the back. That I believe that's actually one of those prop driven
Yes,
gliders.
yes.
That's
See,
exactly what
it,
that
it
looks like.
drops something into the ground. Okay,
Yep.
and to me that would be, marijuana, cocaine, other types of drugs
But
that
see, now this is the thing that, according to what NASA said, that they're going to gravitate towards. They're going to grab. They're going to be. They said, uh, they're asking everybody, according to them, to come forward. So what what really got to me about the whole NASA thing was, and it was in their report. And the thing is, they don't have really lightweight people in their on the board. There was a couple guys from the FAA there. There were from AE Industrial Partners, from universities, and in their own executive wrap up right in the beginning, it basically says they don't even have baselines. At present, quote, at present, analysis of UAP data is hampered by poor sensor calibration, the lack of multiple measurements, the lack of sensor metadata, lack of baseline data, baseline data. In other words, every bit of data they're lacking in. But a paragraph above that, they say they're uniquely qualified to study UFOs.
well, and I think you got some good points going there, my man. You really do, and I look at it too. Excuse me. I look at it too as, you know, this is where if we play the conspiracy card of UAP, this is a prime example of anything flying that can't be easily identified being UAP. Okay. And when I look at when you see a footage of what is clearly a hang glider that probably has some sort of jetpack on the back of it, and then it drops a bag onto the ground, which is what a lot of drug runners do to keep away from the police and the border patrol. Okay, it's obvious that they're pulling the wool over our eyes. It's obvious to me that they are doing this on purpose to try and screw people up about the whole UAP phenomena. Okay, this is why, and people get sick of it when I say it, Terry, but this is why I am very staunchly against this entire UAP crap. Because what we've seen in these videos is crap and easily identifiable. And I'm not even a video professional, okay? But it's easy to see. And to me, it's shameful to watch them pull, this type of video out and try and fool people that this is something we need to be wary of. Well, of course, you need to be wary of UAP because they're man made. And that means if they're man made, people are trying to invade your airspace. UFOs, they can't control them. They don't know where they're going to pop up. They don't know when they're going to come down to the ground. There is no control. And this is the argument that I have with a lot of people in the UFO community who want to play the UAP game because it's the popular terminology of the day. And I hate harping on it because I know our audience is sick of me talking about it.
Well,
But how else do you get the message across?
how many more offices are we going to have to listen to? I mean, first you had this one, then you had that one, then you had AARO, and now you've got this thing from NASA, and none of them are doing anything or going anywhere. Look at the footage that they're giving us to look at. Grainy, and even though it's grainy and it's basically horrible, you can still tell it's a hang glider, it's a bird, it's a balloon. It, I tell you what, Dave, if they gave us, the public, a tenth of what they spent so far to get them to where they're at right now, we'd basically be grilling in the backyard with Fred the alien, I think. Uh,
Mhm.
it's mind blowing to me. It just is that NASA
But
can speak out of this side of their mouth and oh, it's frustrating. It's
I
just
hear you,
frustrating.
man. I hear you. And it's, I mean, our job is to try and educate people with the proper information. That's our job.
Yep.
Okay. But how do we do it when every day we see people inundated with stupidity? And that's exactly what we're seeing with this UAP videos, these 10 videos that have come out. Is they're once again treating us as if we are ignorant.
Well, it's not just stupidity, but if you recall correctly, back on the 24th, just back on let's see, it was July 24th, when the Pentagon basically blocked lawmakers from seeing videos and footage and hearing testimony about UFO UAP. The, the Pentagon pushed back against it. And they're continuing. They're still pushing back. They're trying to get the whole bill just gone. So it's not just in disinformation anymore. It's not just a stigma. It's not just a stupidity, but now it's actual pushback from the government. Is it going to go back in the bottle again for another 20 years?
That I don't know. I wish I could tell you that. But I mean, considering, let's look at the possible the story here for a second though. Okay, we know the Navy and the US Air Force is no longer sending out videos. We know this. They've said it.
Yep.
So why all of a sudden out of the blue would the Border Patrol between California and Mexico all of a sudden release a bunch of videos, which are not very good, to say the least? But they're claiming these are 10 new released videos of UAP. Why enter the game? Once again, it makes no sense.
Nope. And it wasn't just the thing about it was too that they didn't just specify that it was where they said the border where you would assume with everything else that's going on that it would have been our southern border. It was the border between, according to the story, was both borders, but specifically they were pointing the fingers towards Canada with the Border Patrol. So, like you said, why the Border Patrol of all things, and why the ones? The whole thing doesn't make sense to me. It just really none of it adds up. To me, it's just a way to muddy the waters even more than they are already. Is that what you think they're doing?
I'm not understanding the reasoning. Terry, I want to understand the reasoning. I'm not finding the logic behind it. Okay? And usually when something has been released, they're outside of the videos that Jeremy Corbell had released on his own, those 4 videos that he released from his sources. I'm not quite sure when the military has shut down operations on UFO videos for the public, why all of a sudden they would open this up. There's no sense to it. They've gone against the grain of what the military has said they were doing. And it's baffling. This is one of those new mysteries where, all the UAPers are going to be championing these videos. And in the meantime, skeptics like Mick West and others are going to have a heyday ripping them apart. Look, I want videos to be real. I believe the Nimitz incident. Okay? I believe other videos that they've put out there are real. But this, if you can't see right through this, just go on Twitter and type in latest UFO videos and hit video.
Well,
They're all right
the problem is though, Dave, is the larger networks picked this up too. Like it was on NBC. So this went mainstream too.
Yeah.
Which, and if I remember right, the one that they showed on NBC was the one that was, I think it was the bird video, the one that looks like a bird.
Terry, let's hold on right there because we do got to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. We have Terry Hall for the UFO Report. And what has been the reaction about NASA this week? And a lot more on Spaced Out Radio. Stay tuned. All right, buddy, we're clear.
I mean, I'm looking at some of the comments from the NBC from their website about this, and It's like I'm glad to see there's a major media outlet actually starting to report this seriously now. I mean, that's all well and good. That's someone's heartfelt belief, but there's a lot more serious stuff out there than the Border Patrol doing things with hang gliders.
Mm-hmm.
And what blows me away is the things that we have, the public has available to us now. Some of the videos that both you and I have both seen and other people in the community have seen and made, and they're pulling this out of their hat. My belief just keeps getting more entrenched in the public is the one to move the football forward, not the government entities anymore. They've had the opportunity to do this for 80 years and they haven't done it. They're not going to do it. So if we don't push for it, it's just not going to happen.
I hear you. I hear you.
You've got people in your own audience, Dave, and you know this as well as I do, that have fantastic footage of lots of different things, not just UFO, UAP, cryptids, uh, things in the paranormal world. If you believe in such things, ghosts, spirits, that type of phenomena. And this is our community, our spaced out radio community, the people that we know. And in our community, it, if we have that, then who knows what other people have? But it would be the public, not the government. And this whole NASA thing, I mean, if you would just go in and read the executive summary, it'll you don't know whether to giggle about it or be upset or just flat out cry about it.
We'll talk
What
about the
ang-
NASA thing when we
well,
get
what
back.
angers me about it is I was one of those kids that sat in front of my TV when I was 5, glued to it, watching them land on the moon. I'll be right back.
Little Terry Hall, everybody. I'm debating whether to go get firewood tomorrow.
You know what? From the farmers' almanacs that I follow, I would say that it would probably be a smart thing to do.
Yeah.
Because we're supposed to have, according to the book, we're supposed to have a wet winter.
For us, we're supposed to get a lot of snow. A lot of snow. Not supposed to be as cold, but a lot of snow. Neil is asking, Dave, do you believe the moon landings? Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Guys, I have got an entire spaced out radio wall here.
Nice. Very nice.
When we do movie nights here at the house, we got one of those little projector deals. But yeah, I can make Dave life size in my living room.
That's scary. Round dwarf, how many cords do I have? Right now, I'm sitting at about 3 1/4 cords. So I just need one load in my trailer, but I got to, I want to go get some for a buddy of mine too. He just moved up here and he doesn't have a chainsaw or anything like that. And he's running out of wood for his fire pit. So I'm going to go surprise him with some wood tomorrow.
My neighbor just moved to Texas, and he actually had a barbecue restaurant, right? A barbecue joint. And when he left me 3.5 cords of oak, and it's all
Nice.
split. Everything's all I had to do was stack it. It was sweet, man.
Nice. Nice. Let's see. Nice pointy sticks, Joe. Very nice pointy sticks. Lord William, no, I have not seen a white Yeti. The Sasquatch I seen were dark brown, reddish brown, and one was very dark. Here we go. Here we go with the final half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears. Reminder to all of you that if you've missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives by go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and you can join the Space Travelers Club on Patreon. Here we go. Terry Hall is filling in for little Timmy Senor tonight on the UFO report. Tim's come down with a cold, so he is out for the night, but he'll be back. Trust me, he will be back, people.
And stronger than ever.
Terry, you wanted to talk about NASA here because you haven't had a chance to really speak on it. And you know, it's been almost a week here since the reports came out and everybody felt it was just a big joke. What's your thoughts on everything after having some analysis over it?
After I got to sit back and read through the paperwork and kind of give it in a second and third read, and really look into some of the professors, some of the people who were there, the presenters. You had everybody. I mean, they had a good mix. They had people from the universities of California, San Diego. They had George Mason University. They had they had science journalists there. They had people from the FAA there. They had a retired astronaut there. But when you go through and read the report, every statement they make, they cancel out. We need to gather evidence, but we don't have any baseline. We're uniquely qualified to do this, but we've never seen one. And it's just that over and over and over again. And it's the same kind of thing that we've been seeing from Arrow and from pretty much anything else. NASA hasn't given us a UFO czar. As a matter of fact, they flat out refused to say who they were going to make the head of all this because they said a backlash. So even in that aspect, it's a statement and a cancellation, and a statement and a cancellation, and it's just as frustrating as what any other entity in the government has put forward up to this point. Tim Burchett and his crew are beating their heads against the proverbial wall. And Dave, I know that you've never really been a fan of Never a Straight Answer. What's your thoughts on it?
Well, I have talked to a lot of colleagues about this since the report has come out because it has been a hot button subject behind the scenes of people. Just we're all trying to figure out, did we actually hear what we heard? Okay, of NASA's denial. And in a series of tweets, if you noticed on X, that Bill Nelson, the head of NASA, has been tweeting a lot lately and posting a lot on Twitter, almost like he thinks he's done something right and that he's got to be out there in the public realm, talking about UAP crap. Okay. And I started hitting him up, and so did others, regarding, why didn't you talk about what was in your closet? You talked about everything but what NASA knows or had known or should know about this subject. Why are you so afraid to get to the real topic of everything? And of course, I don't expect him to respond because people like Bill Nelson are just like rock stars and movie stars where they have their notifications turned off. So therefore, they're not going to respond when you get 500 or 1,000 or 10,000 replies to a tweet, unless you're somebody like Elon Musk, who is addicted to his own platform and is out there, the odd time will respond to replies to people. So the fact that he didn't respond was not surprising, but the public needs to keep the pressure up. And this is where we're hearing from a lot of people is if you're upset about Bill Nelson and you're ready to call his bluff, you have to be able to call out NASA when you can. Politely, of course. I mean, they're not dummies there. We have to remember they're not dummies. They are in the midst of playing a game with the public regarding this subject. Some of them probably don't want to play the game. Terry.
I think you said a lot right there. The game. I don't ever take anything away from what Tom DeLong and Elizondo and their group did to move the football forward. I think it was part of the game to try to make Uncle Sam not the villain in the story that's always kept this hidden and lied and manipulated and even undeaded some people over it, according to the stories that we've all heard. But I think that Tom DeLong dropped the football, right? They gave him the opportunity. Hey, make us the hero. Make us the guys who were protecting rather than being the villains who were hiding. Um, was it another stab with NASA? Are they the ones because they've been our heroes? We all look up, astronauts in my day were freaking rock stars, man. They were everybody looked up to them. Anything they gave them ticker tape parades in New York when those guys came home, man. Is it NASA? Are they the ones to take the villain stigma away from NASA now? Is that what this is? Um, who knows?
Well, I mean, the fact that NASA wants to play the role of innocent dummy regarding this is still quite unfathomable to me. Why would you do this? And that's what, once again, doesn't make sense to me. 2 plus 2 usually equals 4. When it comes to UFOs, what we are seeing is 2 plus 2 equaling 76.
2 plus 2 has never equaled 4 in any ledger book anywhere in the black budget programs in the Pentagon. And NASA and Arrow tied themselves together with that whole deal.
Enigma Labs.
All the framework of recommendations through the whole one of the framework of recommendations at the meeting there was that Arrow and NASA play an essential part with one another. So now it is the government with their feet in the NASA too. Everything that's been coming out about this, the Pentagon has had their feet into. And if you recall right, there was one of the meetings that one of the people from NASA was going to attend, and then all of a sudden he wasn't going to attend. Do you recall which one that was, Dave?
I honestly do not.
Well, but what it boiled down to was somebody at the Pentagon cared enough to follow that man's itinerary and told him, that you're not going to that one. There's too much meddling going on here. in everybody that's coming forward, whether it's Enigma Labs or whoever it is, the government is putting their spider webs, their tendrils out. They're throwing their hooks out, and they're not coming back unbaited or uncaught. Every time they throw a hook out, it's sinking into something, and it's sunk into NASA. So, are we going to do the whole thing again to where you can go ahead and call in a report on this stuff, but we're not going to share any of the information with you? Is it going to be one of those things again?
But that's the way it's been, and that's the way that they're playing it. And this is why, I think we have done a good job, and our audience, whether it's on radio or in our YouTube channel, has done a great job at paying attention to the fact that they are getting the wool pulled over their eyes by this unique group that is supposed to be there for the better part of humanity and a better part of space exploration, and we just don't see it happening at all. We really don't. And how do we combat that? The only way we can combat that is by calling their bluff. That's it. That's it.
Back in the day, Dave, there was a movie, and it's kind of a cult classic now, called The Warriors, and it was about this um, group of gentlemen who belonged to a particular group, uh, got pointed out, and they got chased across New York. But prior to that, there was a bunch of individual gentlemen's groups and ladies' groups all gathered together in a park, with one gentleman on a bandstand talking down to all of them and saying, if we all just come together, we could run all of it. Now,
Mhm.
we've always said in the UFO community that we wanted scientists and reporters and the government to take this seriously. We've gotten to the point now to where at least some of our journalists are taking this seriously. There are certain segments in our own government that's starting to take it seriously, as well as around the world. But we still got that's not the scientist that I want, or that what that one said is lame as a duck because I think this, instead of just coming together for once and trying to push it forward. I mean, we've become so desensitized to this that I think right now, if you would run a poll question of would you be surprised if an alien landed on the White House front lawn tomorrow, I don't think it would be. I don't think people would fall out of their chair. I mean, honestly, after what David Grush said, that should have moved the needle. If it turns out to be true, and even if not, it was in front of Congress, and there was consequences behind that. That that should have been War of the Worlds radio, people running out of their homes and looking up kind of thing, but it wasn't.
No, you're
What
right.
is what's it gonna take? What's it gonna take?
Well, from what's it going to take with NASA, so we got about 7.5 minutes left. Have you heard any of the latest news regarding Jaime Maussan's last stand?
I have, and there's a couple different sides to that because the story's been developing. And allegedly, the Nazca mummies uh, allegedly have not been manipulated. They're a true skeleton. But one thing that I caught, and I don't know if anyone else really caught this or not, um, in ancient Japanese lore, they had these little figurines called the dogu. And the dogu look remarkably similar to that Nazca mummy. Facially,
Mhm.
they do. Um, so that's another kind of leads a little bit of credence to it that why would someone way over here on the planet have something that looks remarkably similar once again to someone on this side of the planet? Across a whole bunch of water that nobody was supposed to be able to sail across or go across or, uh, float a 100,000-ton stone across, much less, you know? So, but Jaime Maussan went on, I can't remember which program it was on, and he and the anchor person of that program were really going back and forth across it, but it really wasn't so much about the validity of it, but whether it had been taken out of a antiquities had been stolen. I believe that the meltdown between the two of those was over um, it being an antiquity and it was no longer in the possession of the country it originated from.
Well, we know those bodies were stolen by grave robbers.
Yes, absolutely.
And we know that anything to do with the history of Nazca is property of the government of Peru because they're trying to save the history. Yeah, and believe it or not, it is sickening to think that there are, in Peru, in Egypt, still grave robbers out there.
But
But for some of them, that's their income.
but it's not just that. These mummies, we've known about these and others similar to these or that tie in with these for several years now. So why, when they were brought forth as evidence, did the question of it being a stolen antiquity be the centerpiece of the subject? Rather than being the centerpiece of the subject as this is a possible non-human being that we have here.
Mm-hmm. I'm just still surprised, as are many others, that Jaime Maussan is at his age and his stature in Mexico is still trying to hold his reputation on this entire, staged phenomena.
Well, there's another gentleman that when they did when they presented themselves in front of Congress, his name is Antonio Huenes. And Antonio has been in this for many, many, many years. He's a you could say a UFO OG. Started out in Peru. I know Antonio, he's a wonderful guy. But we discussed the Nazca mummies between the two of us, and Antonio, with as much experience as he has in this field, was convinced that they were real. So, like I said, why make the subject? Because now, even in the New York Post, they've got where they've actually studied these things now and done the X-rays and the CAT scans and the MRIs, and I don't believe they've done any DNA or anything like that. But as far as imaging goes, they're pretty convincing. It, at least to me, they are. That's my own personal opinion. They're pretty convincing, and the doctors, the testimony they're getting from the doctors are lending credence to where they're they're not something that was made in someone's garage. This
Oh, I
wasn't
don't think it's paper
a hoax
mache.
type thing.
I don't
Yeah.
think it's paper mache. The problem that I have is we're relying when they tried to early on when those bodies were discovered years ago. They brought in top-notch scientists from American and Mexican universities to test the DNA on these. And the DNA came back as human, okay, as well as other animal parts in it, like they were created. They look very real, don't get me wrong. But all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Mosan, within days of having this fall flat on his face. Within days, he's got major scientists allegedly working on the DNA and everything regarding the reality of these mummies being alien. That
Was
takes
it
longer
him
than
that was it him or was it I don't I'm sorry, I'm unfamiliar with Mexican politics, but we'll just say their parliament. Was it Jaime Maussan that pushed it forward, or the
no.
Mexican Congress that pushed
We
it
learned
forward?
that the Mexican Congress had nothing to do with it. Nothing to do with it. This was a publicity stunt.
Another thing to muddy the water, Jaime Maussan has been a character for years. You've met him, I've met him. He's a fairly standoffish individual anymore as he's grown older. But with any of the more recognizable names in this field, like your say a friend of the show, Ross Coulthart. Well, he's had his controversial moments. Jaime Maussan, he's had his controversial moments. Antonio Rojas, any of the guys that are recognizable, that are always the faces that you see on TV, they can always throw them under the bus anytime they want because there's controversy in their background.
Mm-hmm.
And
I get that. We only got 15 seconds.
Jaime Maussan, knowing that, shouldn't have pulled this stunt. He shouldn't have done this.
I agree. We're going to leave it there. Terry Hall, thank you so much for filling in for little Timmy Senor on the UFO report tonight. Very much appreciated. And we say a big thank you to Dr. Angela Smith coming in to talk about both remote viewing and alien species that are visiting our planet right now. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother Is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAP, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, the Space Travelers Club, and on Twitter, hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, Terry, what do?
We own the night.
Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night, but soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we got room for them too. Good night. Rock and roll there, Terrence.
Dude, I am so totally stoked for your weekend crew this weekend.
Me too. The
Totally stoked, man.
Robbie G and his partner Nicole hanging
boy.
on. The guy, I think they got Preston and Dolly coming back on.
Yeah, boy. It's gonna be it. I'm over the moon excited. It's time. I think it's time we take the Woo terrain and make it into the Woo Express. Yeah, boy. And look, let's just cut to the chase. Everybody needs to take the like button, take them out to dinner, sit him down, order the most expensive meal that you think that you could afford, and then bail on him. Leave him sitting there. Just leave him sitting there. And
Mm.
do like your mama told you to do when you guys were growing up and share this. Quit being so stingy. Share it around.
Stop
Take
it.
a second.
Stop
Put it on your post
That's
it
right.
mean. Put it's just come on. It's time to help Dave grow because look, and I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say this. The public's got to do this. We've got to do this. The government is fumble footing everything. Everything. Dave's our Walter Cronkite, man. He's our Art Bell. He's our dude. We need to push this forward, get it in everybody's face so they get the right information and they get it straight from the source, from Dave Scott.
And Terry's mustache. Not Terry. Terry's mustache.
Yeah,
Look at
because
how
it actually glows. It actually glows. That's how when we're out in the forest, my old lady can it glows. It's kind of like
the
putting one of
first
those
100
collars on your dog.
this way. The first 20 people that sign up for our Reno party get clippings of Terry's mustache.
And look, I'll even give you the scissors for reals, like for reals, for reals. My daughter's a cosmetologist. I'll bring a pair of her clippers and you can carve like SOR on the side of my melon or something. Oh, we're gonna have a blast on there this year, man. It's gonna be a
Oh
kick.
yeah.
And
Yeah,
look, the Spaced Out Travelers Club. That's open and available for everybody right now too. Add a little bit of woo to your life. Join the Space Travelers Club. There's you look with what we've got coming up, guys. Dave and I have been working really hard behind the scenes. There's a whole lot of new stuff that's upcoming. on and not just new hosts, not just new content, but a lot of new benefits for for the fans and for you Patreon members of Spaced Out Radio. There's a lot of new stuff coming. And there's Grantavius. He's coming too. He's on the Woo train. We're gonna make him a conductor again. I love you, Grant.
we
Need to
love
call
you,
you, by the way, buddy.
Yeah.
He wants the much. The guy who looks like Jensen Ackles, Dean Winchester himself, wants my mustache, please. I'm trying to be a poor imitation of Sam Elliott.
Mhm.
At one point in time, I could almost pull it off, but yeah, age did not do me kind like it did old Sam.
He's still got that golden voice.
He does too.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't do that, mijo. No, my dogs just look at me like, yeah, Dad, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Dave, I'm going to call it an evening, buddy, because I have got a busy day for the show mañana. We've got some preps and things that we must get done
Yes.
prior to showtime.
So do I, my friend. So do
Thanks for
I.
having me on this evening. It's been a
Thank
pleasure
you.
as always. Thanks to each and every one of you guys out there. We really appreciate and love each and every one of you, and you know we do. So I'm
So we
going to
do.
call it a night, boss. Ciao for now.
All right. See you,
Good
Terry.
night, all.
Little Terry Hall, everybody. Little Terry Hall. That's what we do around here. Any questions, comments? Concerns? Questions? Anything? Neil, between Cat and Dirty Filth, they are, and myself, we go after the topics that we feel that people want to hear. And, every now and again, one thing I always want to remind people is we may not have a lot of the big name guests that show up. Okay. But there's a method to my madness with that. And that is, yes, they may be in the know and they may be connected, but every now and again, it's great to have a fresh voice. Like you take earlier this week, John Duncan that we had on, or pardon me, James Duncan, I'm way off. Justin Decker talking about Sasquatch and Bigfoot. Okay. That guy has never done a big time interview. And I'm going to be honest with you. When I saw him on Facebook and I was like, damn, this guy looks unique. He's got a great beard. True story. I bet you this guy can speak. And lo and behold, we get him on the air, and the guy just sounds beautiful with his stories about growing up in the jungle and the monsters that were there, that, having to take a bath and watching out for anacondas. I mean, it was incredible. And I love finding those diamonds in a rough that aren't going to get the shot at Coast to Coast or shows of that size or ilk. And when we bring them in here, it's a beautiful surprise of how awesome they are. So we push hard trying to not only get the bigger names, but also the names that are surrounding us as well. So it's a tough balance, but I mean, we also have a reputation out there too, where if I call up, it's rare someone's going to tell me no. Rare, and so that also benefits as well, because people know, especially the bigger names, when they come on the show, they know that there's not going to be any aha gotcha moments. There's not going to be any games played or controversial subjects asked. There will be some tough questions because that's what we're supposed to do. But it's the way it is. Dogman, love your show and the community respect here. Thank you, Dogman. We love having you get up early and watch us, man. We do. We really appreciate you doing that for us as well. The only thing I ask in return, besides all of you joining the Space Travelers Club, the only thing I ask for in return is that you share the show. Tell your friends about it, invite them in. I want to get this chat room up to, 400 or 500 people. I really do. I realize, that's going to take away the intimacy of everything, but I really want to get our live viewership up, especially on YouTube. And trying to do that right now. But you know what? For everything, I realize our time slot isn't for everybody, but we're trying. And that's all we can do is try. Next question. The fan party right now is going to be at the Silver Legacy Casino and Resort. It may move next door to El Dorado. We're working on that right now, but the dates are set. So if you want to put the dates in your calendar, Monica, the dates are May 10th through 12th. And we're just in the process of setting up a Skywatch, a paranormal investigation for you. We're trying to get everything kind of going at the same time. The live show, the VIP party, and go from there. Next question, Lil Cam. What's your total audience reach on the radio side? Probably around 175,000. Around there. We bleed into Toronto and we bleed into Phoenix. Those are our two biggest markets. Patricia, how are you? AZ Watts, how you doing? You're going to have to change your name now that JJ is retired. Any other questions, guys? SOR will be 9 years old on November 30th. Well, I haven't talked to Jimmy lately. I'm editing right now, Tim. So we got a couple minutes. I don't know when the UFOs are going to bring Elvis back. I don't know. Okay, everyone. I'm going to say goodnight tonight so I can get this edited quickly and head off to bed. Thank you, Grant, Lord William, Simon ×2, Vaughn, Debster ×2, and Louis ×2 for the great super chats tonight. Don't forget to, and I'm asking you guys, we're trying to build a nice community here in our Space Travelers Club. We need all of you in there. Minimum $5 a month. You get to choose your rate, your monthly rate on there. We're looking for good ideas to help spice it up for you and build a real solid foundation and community. So head on over to our Patreon account. The link is below, and we love you. I will see you on Monday. And this weekend, go easy on Nicole and Rob G. They're just getting used to everything, including each other. So give them a good opportunity in the next few weeks to just sit back, relax, and get comfy. We'll talk to you guys on Monday. Good night.
healthy, my friend.
You too.
If you need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.